In my view, the single strongest argument against theistic evolution is that the information in living things and the overwhelming complexity of that information could not have been generated by natural laws and random processes given a 4 billion-year-old Earth and a 16 billion-year-old universe. In fact, the atheist Thomas Nagel recently wrote a book called Mind and Cosmos, and he said there are at least two things that atheists and Darwinists simply cannot explain. And the first is the origin of life from non-living matter. It's impossible to ask me to believe, he said, that could happen by natural law and random chance. And the second is from that first cell, the overwhelming development of staggeringly diverse beings that are highly complicated. You ever looked at the human brain? That thing's complicated. And Nagel said, I can't bring myself to believe that could happen by Darwinian processes and natural law. He says, I hope I don't have to appeal to the God hypothesis because I don't want there to be a God. He says that in his own book. I don't want to live in a universe where there's a cosmic authority. But at this point, I'm stuck and I'm looking for options.
In Darwin's day, we knew very little about cellular chemistry, for one thing. We knew very little about metabolism, how cells go about making the chemicals that they need to make the big parts of living cells. We now understand that in some detail, and we also understand about the proteins that do the chemistry of life. These are called enzymes. We understand how large these enzymes are. We understand that they are encoded by genes, and we understand how that encoding takes place. That's called the genetic code. So really, you put all that together, we now understand something about digitally encoded information in cells, encoded in the genome. We understand why it's there to encode proteins, and we understand how the proteins function to do the chemistry of life.
Ready, set, go.
You wrote a book called We Are All Apes.
That's correct.
Where's your proof that we are all apes?
What is an ape?
Right, what is an ape?
Right. An ape is any member of the taxonomic superfamily Hominoidea.
Amazing. Have you ever seen a human being turn into you ever seen an ape? Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
Have I ever seen a dog turn into a dachshund?
No, have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
Have I ever seen a car turn into a Corvette?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, have I ever seen a shark turn into a fish?
I didn't ask about any of those things. I asked, when have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
I'm trying to illustrate the fallacy of your question.
How's that fallacy? You wrote that we're all ape. You must have.
And we are.
You
and
must
that book,
have at some point all these hundreds and
right,
thousands of years. At some point, you would have seen if an ape turned into a human being. Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
The first part of the book, I wanted people to have the science, not necessarily the technical details. I didn't want to make it hard to read, but I wanted them to have the science that tells them beyond any reasonable doubt that the story that we've been told about our origin and our potential is no longer supported by the evidence.
I know scientists who have proved that God exists, and I know those who are against God, and they think that God doesn't exist.
No, you don't.
But let me ask you, because of time.
You don't know.
I do know. I know scientists who have proved that God exists.
You don't.
It's strange how your preconceptions really color the way you process data, and some people just went along with what they were taught, and I never tended to do that. I was always questioning what I was taught, including Darwinism.
If there's only a third of people who still believe in God in any concept at all. So no, you don't know.
Oh,
any
yeah.
scientist.
Yes, I do.
And you can't
And
show
let me say
that.
this to you. You asked why there are no Nobel Peace
All right, I
Prize
think we're
for.
done.
The peer-reviewed science, so it's not just my theory or my hypothesis. It is the peer-reviewed science that's showing us that the physical evidence does not support the story that we are all being told. We're steeped in this story of Darwin's idea of evolution.
So why
Now,
is
get back to my question
evolution?
so that you can understand this?
Why is evolution
Do you
still?
understand?
Why
do you
is
understand that
evolution just a theory even today?
Why is it that atomic theory is just a
See,
theory
you're not
today?
answering the question. You're
I
answering the
am.
question with
I'm
another
explaining to you
crazy
what's the
question.
problem. Why is it the theory of gravity is just a theory today? You know
Why is evolution still considered a theory?
For the same reason that atomic theory is still considered a theory, for the same reason that theory of gravity is still a theory, for the same reason that the germ theory of disease is still a theory.
So
for the same
because
reason
it
that
can't
the
be
cell theory of
proven to be
biology
real.
is theory. Because there is a rule in science that we want to go the complete opposite direction of religion, and rather than assert things to be true that are not true, we are not allowed to proclaim absolute truth. So everything that we know to be true has to be regarded as a theory, on the hypothetical potential, at least, that something could be improved or changed later on.
That's amazing.
There is a rule.
Because of time, let me ask you this.
There is a rule in science that you cannot prove.
You're talking
if there's a
theory.
rule in science, I'm answering your question.
But you're
won't let me
talking
answer it.
theory.
I'm answering the question, and you won't let me answer it. There is a rule in science that says that you cannot prove any theory to be true in the positive sense. At most, the most you can do is show.
I know scientists who have proved that God exists, and I know those who are against God, and they think that God doesn't exist.
No, you don't.
If you believe that everything was cobbled together through random processes, then there would be a lot of junk. There would be the residue of cobbling sitting there, and that's why people jumped to this junk DNA hypothesis. They found out that a very small fraction of the genome actually encodes proteins. That was the one aspect of genomes that we understood well, is that they encode proteins, so they assumed all the rest of it is junk. Well, the truth is, we didn't know what the rest of it was doing, but that doesn't mean it's junk, and it's becoming increasingly clear that in fact it isn't junk, and that's a significant prediction. It's not a prediction that Darwin himself made, but it follows very readily and naturally from Darwinism, and it turns out not to be correct.
All these years, you would have think that somebody, somewhere, somehow, would have seen an ape turn into a human being, and no one has ever seen that. It's a spiritual battle, a warfare between good and evil.
We all were deceived. We all had the spinning ball put in our classroom from the time we were little wee tots that says on the bottom, not for educational purposes.
Thanks a lot for searching that out. I appreciate that. Fisherman in the box. Fisherman in a box.